Later that night, the ladies get on a Zoom call, and some of the same players that said, yeah, we'll authorize a strike, now those same players are saying, maybe we should take the deal. My money's drying up. Maybe we should take the deal. As a heated players meeting took place Sunday night, as Andy Constable reports.
March 10th, that's the deadline Adam Silver just handed the WNBA Players Association. Get a deal done or risk delaying the entire season. And now, less than 48 hours after that ultimatum, the players who unanimously voted to authorize a strike are suddenly having second thoughts. We're talking about a complete reversal from some of the same voices that were ready to walk away from the table just weeks ago.
Article, before we dive into it, a quick blurb. One of the causes of disagreements between players, according to multiple sources, is the approach to a potential strike. Players authorized a potential strike in a near unanimous vote in mid-December, but some players have changed their mind since. It seems that some players have finally realized, I gave up all my leverage when I authorized the strike.
This is where it gets messy. The Players Association held a virtual meeting on Tuesday night to discuss their negotiating strategy. According to multiple sources with direct knowledge of that call, the tone went from professional to tense almost immediately. Players who voted yes on the strike authorization in mid-December are now saying, wait, maybe we should reconsider. And the executive committee, the 7 players who were given complete authority to call a strike whenever they wanted, they're facing pushback from their own membership.
You guys lost all your leverage. All the power you thought you had as a single-body entity within the large Players Association, you lost all that power. You said, here, executive committee, the power is now all in your hands. Somebody should have told you that. Maybe me. Maybe I did mention it. Somebody should have said otherwise to you folks. But no, you said, here, strike.
Here's what actually happened with that strike vote. In December, the players gave away all their leverage in one move. They voted to authorize the executive committee, led by President Noka Ogwumike, to call a strike at their discretion. No second vote required, no member approval needed, just 7 players making the decision for everyone. And now that the reality of a potential lockout is setting in, players are realizing they handed over their power to a small group that might not represent their individual interests.
A letter from the union's director called the gathering of players spirited, passionate, and at times tough. The Players Association held a virtual meeting with its members on Tuesday evening to discuss the state of labor negotiations. The tone quickly became tense as players discussed the best path forward, according to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the meeting. One of the causes of disagreement between players, according to multiple sources, is the approach to a potential strike. Players authorized a potential strike in a near unanimous vote in mid-December, but some players have changed their mind since.
The Players Association's executive director, Terry Carmichael Jackson, sent a letter to union members after that heated Tuesday meeting. She described the conversation as spirited, passionate, and at times tough. That's corporate speak for it got ugly. When your own director is acknowledging the meeting was difficult, you know there's real division happening. She tried to spin it positively, saying honest debate signals the health of their union. But here's the reality. When players are reversing their strike authorization vote, that's not healthy debate. That's fracture.
Lexi Brown told Front Office Sports. So I did not expect all of us to come into these meetings week by week and just kumbaya and everybody agree on everything. That's not reality. I can say this with 100% confidence. Lexi Brown's fed up with the executive committee. Lexi Brown is one of those players that said, no, I'm not authorizing a strike. Everything she said in interviews leans towards that. Remember, Marcellus Wiley kind of spilled the...
Let's talk about what the league actually proposed. On February 20th, the WNBA sent over their latest offer. $5.65 million salary cap per team. No movement on revenue sharing percentages. The only significant change was putting team housing back on the table for all players, but not until 2026. That's the offer players are now debating. And remember, the league had been providing full housing to every player since 1999, 30 years of not paying a single housing expense. The union pushed back on that benefit, and now they might get it restored, just delayed by a year.
Players both sides needed to prioritize reaching an agreement by March 10th or be at risk of delays to the season. Additionally, League officials had calls with general managers to lay out a timeline for league business if a deal was reached by the second week of March. The league told GMs that if a deal is verbally agreed to on March 10th, it would not be signed until March 31st, according to multiple sources. In this timeline, the expansion draft would be held between April 1st and April 6th. Qualifying offers, including core designations, could be sent out on April 7th and 8th,
Here's where the timeline gets critical. If a deal is verbally agreed to by March 10th, it won't be officially signed until March 31st. That gives the league a specific roadmap. Expansion draft happens between April 1st and 6th. Qualifying offers and core designations go out April 7th and 8th. Then a 48-hour negotiating period from April 9th to 11th. Free agency signing period starts April 12th and runs through the 18th. Training camp begins April 19th. The draft happens April 13th, right in the middle of free agency chaos.
You're going to need to be able to think quick and act fast. I actually like that, to be fair. I like a rapid-fire free agency period. Boom, 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 boom. Into the season we go. Additionally, the pressure being placed on negotiations by the league has been met with confusion as the union waited roughly 6 weeks for a counterproposal to one it submitted in late December. You submitted the same proposal over again. Expecting the league to respond to a proposal that they already said no to is ridiculous. They already said no. Just because you changed a few words, inserted a couple commas and question marks and exclamation points doesn't make.
Think about what that compressed timeline means for players. You're going to have teams making offers, players deciding on contracts, and the entire free agency market operating in a 6-day window. No time to weigh multiple offers. No opportunity to see what other teams do before making your decision. You take the deal in front of you, or you risk losing it. That's exactly what the league wants. Fast decisions, less negotiating leverage, players forced to commit quickly or get left behind. And the union created this situation by dragging out negotiations and burning through months without progress.
From the league's current proposal yet, and the league sent the proposal, what is it, almost a week ago at this point? So who's dragging their feet right now? Quote, "We all want to play," Brown said. "We all want a fair CBA, but fair looks different to different people. So how do we get to a place where fair looks good to everybody, to the majority, to the minority, to the max players, to the role players, the rookies? How do we get to a place where fair looks the same?" The WNBA is waiting on a response from the union to its proposal sent.
Now let's address the claim that there's no fracture among players. Naka Agwamike and Vice President Elijah Clark both told Front Office Sports in February that tough conversations don't equate to division. But here's what we know actually happened. Players who previously voted to authorize a strike are now saying they want to take the league's deal. More than 10 agents representing players at varying levels sent their own letter to union leadership, offering to help get a deal done. When agents are stepping in to push negotiations forward, that tells you their clients are getting nervous.
These players have not needed to pay for a single housing expense. That's crazy to me. Earlier this month, Union President Neko Gumike and Vice President Elisha Clark told Front Office Sports that there were no fractures among the players. Instead, they both asserted that tough conversations were happening behind the scenes. There are so many things that are on the table in this proposal, and us having discussions doesn't equate to fracturing. Well, I'll tell you right now, if players that authorized strikes previously are saying, "No, we actually take that back. No, we actually made a bad decision."
Let's talk about Lexi Brown for a second, because her position matters here. She's been one of the most vocal players questioning the union's strategy. Everything she said in interviews suggests she was against authorizing the strike from the beginning. Marcellus Wiley hinted at this when he mentioned a player approaching him at the gym to discuss concerns about the union's approach. All signs pointed to Brown. She's been consistent in saying the players need to be realistic about what they can actually get. And now, with other players joining her perspective, the executive committee is facing real opposition. Here's what makes this particularly significant for the future of the WNBA. This isn't just about one collective bargaining agreement. This is about how the players' union functions as an organization, and whether it can effectively represent a membership with vastly different financial interests. You've got max players like Breanna Stewart and Jewel Lloyd making over $200,000. You've got rookies on minimum contracts around $65,000. You've got middle-tier veterans trying to extend their careers. And you've got players who supplement their WNBA income by playing overseas in the winter. Those are four completely different financial situations, and they all want different things from this CBA. The max players can afford to hold out. They've got endorsement deals, overseas contracts, Financial security. A delayed season hurts them, but it doesn't devastate them. The rookies and minimum salary players? They need that paycheck. They need to play. They can't afford a lockout or a delayed season that cuts into their earning window. And the union's executive committee is dominated by established stars who have the financial cushion to be aggressive in negotiations. That's where the fracture really lives. It's not just about this specific proposal from the league. It's about whether the union leadership understands that not everyone can afford to play hardball. When you've got players saying their money is drying up, that's not a negotiating tactic. That's real financial pressure. And the executive committee, with their max contracts and endorsement portfolios, might not fully appreciate what that pressure feels like. The league knows this. Adam Silver knows this. That's why the March 10th deadline is so effective. It forces the union to confront the reality that their membership isn't unified. The longer negotiations drag on, the more players start questioning whether the fight is worth it. And once that doubt creeps in, the union's leverage evaporates. Now let's talk about what the union actually submitted back in late December. They sent over a proposal. The league said no. And then the union resubmitted essentially the same proposal with minor tweaks. You can't just rearrange a few sentences, add some commas, and call it a new offer. The league already rejected those terms. Sending them back again isn't negotiating, it's stalling. And then the union complained that they had to wait 6 weeks for a counterproposal. Well, if you're not actually proposing anything new, why would the league rush to respond? This is where Terry Carmichael Jackson's leadership comes into question. She's the executive director. Her job is to guide these negotiations strategically. But according to the timeline, she didn't even send out a survey to gather player feedback on the league's February 20th proposal until after that heated Tuesday meeting. The league sent their offer, and the union leadership didn't immediately poll the membership to see how players felt about it. That's a failure of process. You can't effectively represent your members if you're not actively soliciting their input on major proposals. And here's the thing about those surveys. The union has been using them throughout negotiations to gauge player sentiment, but if you're only sending surveys after contentious meetings, you're being reactive instead of proactive. You should know how your membership feels before tensions boil over, not after. The fact that agents felt compelled to send their own letter offering assistance suggests they don't trust the union's process. And agents only step in like that when their clients are panicking. Let's talk about what happens if this deadline isn't met. If there's no deal by March 10th, the season gets delayed. Training camps don't open on time. The draft gets pushed back. Free agency gets compressed even further, or potentially canceled for this cycle. And all that momentum the WNBA built last season with Caitlin Clark and the record ratings and the increased media attention, that starts to fade. You can't go dark for months and expect casual fans to stay engaged. The hardcore fans will wait. But the new audience that tuned in because of Clark and Angel Reese and the excitement of last season, they'll move on to other sports. That's the leverage the league has. They can afford a delayed season more than the players can. The WNBA is backed by the NBA. They have financial resources. The players are individuals with bills to pay and limited career windows. Every month without games is a month of lost income that they'll never get back. And the union leadership, by authorizing a strike without building a proper strike fund or financial support system, put their members in a vulnerable position. Think about how this would play out if the executive committee actually calls a strike. You'd immediately see players breaking ranks. The ones with financial pressure would start questioning whether they should honor the strike. Agents would be advising their clients to consider their individual situations. Teams would be reaching out to gauge whether players would cross the picket line. And once the first player breaks, the whole thing collapses. That's why the union's position is weaker than it appears. The strike authorization only works if the membership stays unified. And based on that Tuesday meeting, unity is exactly what they don't have. So where does this leave us? The Players Association has until March 10th to decide whether to accept the league's offer or continue fighting for more. But the fight is now internal as much as it is with the league. Players are divided. Agents are intervening. The executive committee is facing pushback. And the clock is ticking. Every day that passes without a deal is another day closer to a delayed season and lost income. The question isn't whether the union will eventually take a deal. They will. They have to. The question is how much damage gets done to player relationships and union cohesion before they get there. Because once this CBA is signed, these players still have to work together. They still have to trust their union leadership. And if a significant portion of the membership feels like the executive committee mishandled these negotiations, that's going to create long-term problems for the Players Association. My prediction, they take the deal before March 10th. The financial pressure is too real. The division is too obvious, and the league has all the leverage. But the fact that it got to this point, with players reversing their strike votes and agents sending letters and heated meetings tearing apart the facade of unity, that tells you everything about how this union operates. They authorized a strike without understanding the consequences. They gave away their leverage without building proper support systems. And now they're scrambling to salvage a negotiation that should have been handled more strategically from the beginning. So here's my question for you. If you were a WNBA player, would you trust this executive committee to make decisions on your behalf moving forward? Because that's what this really comes down to. Not just this CBA, but whether the union's leadership structure actually serves the membership. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you think I'm missing something here, tell me where I'm wrong. Because this situation is messy, and there are legitimate arguments on multiple sides.